This week, Chris Goffey looks at just why Audi had to be sold separate from Volkswagen. Royle drives a dream Aston Martin. And Ginny looks at the new Primera that wasn't initially planned.
Well, I always said the best car in the world was the old shape, air-cooled Porsche 911. What have they gone and done? Well, they've introduced a new model. It's bigger, it's more powerful. This time it's water-cooled, it's longer. It'll accommodate 4 people in, they say, luxury. The question is, does this inherit the title of greatest new car in the world? Well, the previous 911 was, for my money, the best car in the world. The question is the new shape 911 even better? To me, one of the most important things about any car is the interior design, which is as important, if not more so, than the exterior. And I've got to say, the interior of the new 911 is, well, functional. It's a vast improvement on the old shape 911. There's some of it I don't like, these horrible little shiny switches here. They're very tacky. Not quite what you'd expect from a £65,000 supercar like this. But the instrumentation is just an absolute joy. You've got right smack bang in the middle there, the rev counter. That's what you look at, smack bang between the eyes. The speedometer is off to the left, and there's all sorts of other dials and information there as well. And it's all there in that nice cluster. A very nice touch also is below the rev counter, you've got a digital readout of your speed as well. So you've got a traditional old analog readout and a digital as well. And yeah. That works well. As for the driving experience, well, what would you expect? We are talking about one of the world's most famous supercars. We are talking about a car that cost £65,000. Let's get that into context for a minute. You could buy 3 BMW Z3s for the price of one of these cars. And of course it's a great car to drive, although, you know, it's amazing how much time you do spend on very straight motorways like this one. Has to be said, motorways with a not very good road surface, and you just cannot get any fun out of this car at all. You might as well be in any old motor driving in a straight line. There are perilously few open country roads. We're here on a Sunday morning trying to find the open road, and it's pretty damn difficult. One of the big disappointments for me about the new 911 is the noise, or lack of noise. Let me put it like this. One of the joys of the old shape 911, the previous generation model, was when you fired up that 6-cylinder air-cooled engine, you almost didn't need to go anywhere. You just were happy to fire up the engine and sit and listen to it tick over. With the new one, the water-cooled 3-litre, 300 horsepower engine in this car, well, it's a different story. You fire it up and it sounds like any other sort of Japanese car or any other tame sports car on the market. What I'm really saying is I miss desperately that throbbing, that luscious engine note of the old 911, and I think anybody who longs for a 911 for that reason and that reason alone, well, this isn't the car for you. It's the previous generation model that you should go for. It was often said that the old shape 911 was tail happy, and it was very easy to lose, very easy to throw the back out and go flying off the road. I never found it half as bad as people said it was, but yeah, they did have a point, and you could easily swap ends in that car if you didn't treat it with the respect that it deserves. That's the point with a car like this. Yes, you could do something very silly and have an accident very easily, but if you just get into the thing, and bear in mind, this is not a poser's car, this is a beautifully engineered, almost race car for the road. It will do 175 miles per hour, for God's sake. It's got 300 brake horsepower. There's an awful lot of grunt contained within this very small car, and you could get into a lot of trouble, but you'd have to be a very, very silly boy or girl to get out of shape in this one, because I've been chucking it around on a private airfield, actually, almost trying to invite it to catch me out, and it did once or twice, but only when you pushed it to the absolute extreme. And you know, this is the sort of car that you could plonk a little old lady in and tell her to drive, and she could drive it just like she drives a Volkswagen Polo or a Mini Metro or whatever. It is a very, very drivable car for somebody who doesn't have the experience of handling sports cars and supercars. By the same token, if you do have a little bit of knowledge, as I do, of handling serious hardware, you can exploit it to the full, but you will not be caught out by it. Try as I might, I couldn't lose this car. Yes, there was a lot of screeching tyres, and there were one or two little moments where I felt a bit twitchy, but generally speaking, the thing glued itself to the road and actually made me out to be a better driver than I was. What a day. That's the way to spend your Sunday, in the new Porsche 911. I mean, it was no posing down the pub or going around to see my mates to show off. It was just out on those country roads and a few motorways, unfortunately, where it's not so much fun, but really, what a car. I mean, a great car, but it should be a great car. We're talking about a lot of money, £65,000, but we're also talking about 300 horsepower, 3.6 litre engine. It'll hurl you from 0 to 60 in just over 5 seconds. And not that we ever got anything close to these speeds today, but it does have, on paper, a top speed of 175 miles an hour. Not that you'd ever want to do anything like that on public roads. All you want to do on public roads with a car like this is just enjoy the experience. Somehow it's almost as much fun pootling along at low speeds as it is doing the thing that you should be doing in this car, and that's hurling it round corners. And boy, does it go around corners. It just sticks to the road as if the thing is on rails. I've got a few doubts though about it. I keep coming back to this question of noise. It doesn't make the right noises for me. I prefer the old air-cooled engine in terms of the satisfaction to the ear. In terms of satisfaction in driving, well, this is a better driver's car. That water-cooled engine is just absolutely glorious, and those Porsche engineers must be the best in the world at what they do. Remember, this is a very expensive car, but we have to see that price in context. This is a car that will be worth approximately 55% of its original value in 3 years' time. After 36,000 miles, you'll get more than half your money back. So it's a lot of money to shell out, but it holds its price well on the used car market. Is it the best car in the world? Well, to be honest, I still can't quite make up my mind on that one. I said that the old shape 911 was, for my money, the best car in the world when it was around. It is no longer around. This is its replacement. I can't honestly say this is my #1 choice for a new car at the moment. That's the bad news for Porsche. The good news is, if I was going out tomorrow to buy a car, my money would go on what I now consider in 1998 to be the best car on the market, and that is the humble Porsche Boxster, a car that costs precisely half as much as this.
When the new Primera saloon and hatchback were launched in October 1996, Nissan had no firm plans to create an estate version of the car. The old estate had never been a bestseller. However, thanks to the success of the new hatchback, plus a big surge in all estate sales right across Europe, the new Nissan Primera estate was born. The Nissan variant certainly adds more presence to a car which never scored high in the style department, but the chunky back end may not appeal to everyone's tastes. On the road, the estate loses none of the driver's appeal of the saloon or the hatch, and grip and control is good, but not excellent for a car in this class. Standard across the new Primera estate range is ABS and ABD, automatic brake distribution, which gives the most effective braking, no matter where the load is in the car. It's a great idea. And talking of great ideas, one of the British design team of the Primera estate have come up with this one. Nissan have patented this unique removable floor panel to keep your carpets nice and clean. All you do is flip it up, turn it round, and it's all plastic coated in the inside. You can chuck all your muddies in there, no worries. The new Primera estate certainly is a practical, good-looking beast, though it won't set the world on fire. Nissan are aiming it at a market between what they see as a utility estate, such as the Mondeo or 406, and the style estate, such as the Audi Volante and the BMW Touring. Remember, last year the old Primera estate only sold 650 in the UK. It sounds a tall order, but Nissan have got a target for 1998 to sell 3,750 of the new ones. It certainly is a far better drive than the old, and it has been better thought out. But whether it's a match for such cars as the stylish 406 estate or the solid and refined Volkswagen Passat estate, well, it's really up to you and your checkbooks.
After the break, Chris Goffey reports on why Audi had to have its own identity in the UK.
You, like me, probably dream of what you'd do if you won the lottery this weekend. A cool £2 or £3 million would do the trick nicely. There'd be that dream house and then the tricky decision of which supercar to buy. Ferrari, Porsche, Bentley, or how about this, the Aston Martin DB7 Volante at a cost of a cool £90,000. But is this Aston Martin really a good choice in terms of living with the car and driving it? Well, there's no doubt it is a beautiful car to look at. Perhaps not as beautiful as the coupe, but once the hood goes down, you get some very envious looks from passers-by, believe me, and lovely little details like this. I was quite surprised at how small the car actually looks. I expected it to be much longer. Now, the engineers at Bloxham, just outside Banbury, where the car is built, made significant developments over the coupe, and that includes 600 new components, many of which have now found themselves into the DB7 Coupe too. Now, when you cut the roof off a car, obviously you lose a lot of rigidity, and that's why reinforcements, cross braces and gussets have been added to the Volante, plus a softer suspension aimed particularly at the US market. So where does the name DB7 actually come from? Well, DB are the initials of Aston Martin's founder, David Brown, who ran an engineering firm and then went on to actually make tractors. It was during the 50s and 60s that Aston Martin really took off, with a Le Mans victory in 1959, and then production of classics like the DB4, 5 and 6. And of course, James Bond's favourite of those was that DB5. After the war, Aston Martin were not in the healthiest of positions and were put up for sale at a relatively bargain price. David Brown went along and was impressed with a prototype they'd call the Atom, but it was crying out for a better engine. Another great pre-war marque, Lagonda, also caught David Brown's eye. And for two of its engineers, Willie Watson and Donald Baston, under the supervision of W.O. Bentley, the father of Bentley Motors and mastermind behind their great Le Mans victories, they designed an excellent new straight-six engine for Lagonda. Now, this engine caught David Brown's eye, and after some protracted negotiations, Aston Martin and Lagonda came under the same umbrella. Now, under the bonnet of the DB7 is that 3.2-litre straight-six engine coupled with the Eaton supercharger. It produces 335 brake horsepower, and although the Volante is a lot heavier than the coupe, still produces a very respectable 0 to 60 time of 6.5 seconds, top speed of over 150 miles per hour. Now, for me, this manual gearbox is far too much like hard work. The clutch is fairly heavy, and gear shifting needs precision and care, and personally, I definitely choose the automatic box. Now the hood is very simple and easy to open and goes down even faster than Monica Lewinsky, allegedly anyway. You just release these two catches here, push them back, press the button, and it glides perfectly back into place. You don't get that snug fit that you do on the Mercedes SL because the designers wanted that all-important space in the back for two sets of golf clubs. Now little niggles about the DB7 which apply both to the coupe and to the Volante. These dreadful switches here, which believe it or not are actually for the cruise control, although you'd never believe it, not only do they look naff, they don't tell you what they do, and that applies to the other switches on the dashboard too. Also the rear seats are nothing short of useless, to be honest. You can get very small children in there for a very short space of time, but you wonder on a car like this why they even bother to put rear seats in. Also the radio cassette machine, great radio cassette machine, but when you're cruising on the motorway in fifth like that, you can't change cassettes, which is rather irritating. There's also very little space in the footwells for the driver. The pedals are quite severely offset, I've found. There is space there to rest your foot whilst you're cruising on the motorway, but no footrest. And also it's not a car for men with big feet. Shortly before he died, David Brown saw the new DB7 project and gave it his seal of approval, bringing the DB connection full circle to the new golden era in Aston Martin's revival under Ford.
Over the past few years, you may have noticed a quiet revolution going on at Audi. Now, in the old days, they stood shoulder to shoulder with their partners Volkswagen, and in most cases, they shared dealer premises. There were over 350 Audi VW dealerships, and they sold 16,000 Audis in 1989. That's because the salesman knew that their bread and butter was the Golf and the Polo, and Audi sales were seen as incremental add-ons when a customer came along. Now, when the new MD, Len Hunt, arrived from Jaguar some 4 years ago, he at once embarked on an ambitious program of separating Audi off from Volkswagen, establishing new premises and, where possible, styling them on the space-age technology of the customer delivery center at Ingolstadt in Germany. They're called hangars, and there's some 40 of them in the UK at the moment, and the number of Audi dealers has fallen to just 135. So why the move away from Volkswagen? Well, most importantly, to generate a separate identity for Audi so that they could take on their target market, BMW, head on and beat them at their own game. No other two franchises up to then had worked so closely together in the same premises as Audi and Volkswagen.
We had to brand separate Audi from Volkswagen to really create a network. We felt that certainly the research was telling us that we had the lowest recall of any franchise from street presence. People were saying, well, you buy Audis from Volkswagen dealers. So we set forth on a strategy to create 135 Audi centres, as we call them, and really see that strategy coming to fruition in 1998.
I mean, you say that, but Volkswagen's image is of reliability. I mean, is it such a bad name to be associated with?
I don't think it's bad at all. I think it's different, and I think that's what our customers want. We see the sort of brand Audi offering so much more of a different package. We like to think we're sort of modern, innovative, individual, and the brand values that we try and put together are complementary, and in many instances we are together with Volkswagen. But I think we want to offer the customer that different, more prestige car feel. We're going for about 2% market share, which is sort of doubling our market penetration of some 5 years ago, going from 1% to 2%. But that in the prestige world, I think, is about the right sort of volume. You can see BMW slightly in front of that, they're at about 60,000, and people like Volvo in front of that as well, and people like Saab coming through, and Jaguar building their way into that segment. So it really is, I think it's about right, it's 40,000 units, 2% market share in a 2 million market.
And you think you can do that with 135 dealers?
What we're trying to say is that there is a level of business that you always try and get that makes the franchise viable, but equally concerned about distances customers have to travel to get their car serviced. I think people would naturally travel further to buy a car than they would to have the car serviced. So you've got a magical formula that sort of says for that level of business, about 40,000 cars, 2% market share, we see about 135 dealers giving us the geographic coverage, but giving each dealer a territory sustaining that level of business.
I mean, how far will people travel to get their cars serviced?
I think people tend to worry if they've got to drive beyond about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes.
Now, you always said that BMW is your target. How are you doing against that target?
In 1997, the A3 outsold the BMW Compact. And when we look at the A4 against the BMW 3 Series, if we actually take a like for like, that is a four-door saloon and the estate together, actually Audi A4 outsold BMW 3 Series.
But while BMW sells 65,000 cars a year in the UK, Len Hunt says he's not going after them car for car, because quality and not quantity is his watchword. Now, while the number of outlets has fallen under Hunt's direction, sales have been building rapidly. The target is to sell 40,000 new cars and 30,000 used cars in 1999, but they look like achieving that in 1998. So, what's it like working in a hangar?
The actual concept is that all Audi dealers will eventually look all the same. So a customer can walk into White's Camberley and get the ambient feeling of the place, and then go up to a dealership up in Scotland and walk into exactly the same type of showroom.
Is that what customers want? Don't they want individuality in their own backyard?
I think it's really getting an idea of what Audi have got to offer and giving the retail experience, because what we're aiming to do is give a better quality of service, so that the Audi showroom they walk into here and also down at our service department will be exactly the same.
Number of dealers is coming down to 135. You're going to sell an awful lot more cars. Does that mean you won't be able to cope with, for instance, the service business?
We've actually operating a shift program using I think we've got at the moment 3 different teams. So we're covering hours from 7 o'clock in the morning till 7 o'clock at night, 6 days a week. And I don't think that's going to have any effect on actual the service provided by White's for after sales.
It's a big gamble for Audi. Heavy investment from the dealers, centres, heavy investment from the marketing team in the UK, and heavy investment from the factory. But with the success of the saloon car racer paying off in terms of the age of the young executives who want to be seen in Audis, the gamble looks like paying off. Audi really has discovered that everyone's different.
Next week on Motor Week, an update of our testing of the Land Rover Freelander, the What Car of the Year, and why the new Astra has to succeed.